Now, what I've been waiting for, The Way of the Shaman. I've talked about this book before. It's one of my favorites, along with a book called The Cosmic Serpent. It's by a guy named Michael Harner, who is an anthropologist. He's no longer living, I believe, and he is well known. He's not the first anthropologist to write about shamanism, but this book is seen as a classic, and it's definitely influenced tons of other books after it, and its description of shamanic life. And really the thing about studying shamanism, and he gets into this, which I really love, is basically that you can use books to a certain point, but it's a direct experience. And I've talked about this in the videos, some that we've played, and the Agitators of the Agora video, where I talk about the connection between shamanism and anarchy, that it's this direct experience thing, so I feel like the psychology behind it makes sense to me, because it's going to be people who want this independent connection to God or to the universe, or to understand the nature of reality. They would probably pursue shamanism because it's kind of an individual thing. It's definitely, shaman was part of a community. He wasn't seen as, back in the day we would probably call them witch doctors and stuff like that, but there is a difference between a priest and just a healer, and a witch doctor and what a shaman is, because there are very specific traits to what makes a shaman in these communities. And the shaman was seen as a healer. The shaman was seen as somebody that could give advice, and there was also women shamans. It's not just particularly a male thing. And this is, of course, the interesting thing. One of the many interesting things is that shamans around the world, cultures who were completely disconnected by time and space, came to similar conclusions. And what Harner talks about basically is that humans at that time, we used the technology that was available to us. So through trial and error, we did different things to connect to our planet and to understand how we could heal each other. So this included some healing methods like DMT or ayahuasca or other plant concoctions for healing stuff, but also just healing of the mind. And the shaman was somebody who dared to go to the edges, to that void, and to peer in and to dive in. And what they would find is an experience that could guide them in the physical world. So what are the traits of a shaman? What makes a shaman? And can somebody assign you to be a shaman? Does somebody crown you? You are now a shaman. You've passed this amount of classes. No. The idea of what a shaman is a healer, is somebody who chooses to do healing in the community, as I said, beyond medicinal healing, but spiritual healing. And they choose to dedicate the majority of their time and their life to this. And they do healing through drums, through rattles, through sometimes through hallucinogenic substances such as ayahuasca, depending on the tribe, meditation, through tobacco, through tons of different methods. But the one characteristic that sets a shaman apart from others is the trance experience, what Harner called the SSC, the shamanic state of consciousness, compared to the ordinary state of consciousness, the OSC, or as Carlos Castaneda talked about, the non-ordinary reality and the ordinary reality. So that is what distinguishes a shaman from other types of healers or medicine man, spiritual leaders, is choosing to go into this other state of consciousness, this trance state. And this is where the shamanic journey can take place. This is another huge attribute of what a shaman is the shamanic journey. And as I said earlier, with my bike journey, they can be physical journeys, but they can also be journeys of the mind. And my interest, my draw towards shamanism came, I think, originally out of probably an interest in taking a lot of acid and wanting to be Jim Morrison and stuff like that. And then going deeper with it and learning a lot about how those things can be abused, and they can slap you in the face, but they can also reveal some really deep insights about yourself if you're ready and prepared to go to those places. So while I was locked up the second time, I started writing and developing this philosophy, what I called psychedelic Zen, which was a combination of meditation, Zen meditation, Zazen, and controlled hallucinogenic therapy sessions. So that's when I first started to get into those ideas, and then later discovered shamanism. And I really enjoyed the direct connection. This is what I often talk about, is that this is what makes it anarchist. And whenever shamans were going around, these individual leaders, and there was some element for some cultures of shamanic sacrifice, but that's what some would term to be dark shamanism or sorcery, stuff like that. But we're talking about shamanism that that aligns with the non-aggression principle, the good kind. So this would include doing healing, doing spiritual work, because if you understand my message and what we're trying to push at the Conscious Resistance Network is that liberty, freedom, and the physical sense is only one aspect of this. Going deeper with it and going into your mind is the ultimate bastion of where freedom can be found. Now, knowing that, I began to look into how I can know myself deeper, and this came with a meditation session that I attended that involved rattles. This is one of the tools of the shaman. I got this in the forest, the Cherokee National Forest in Tennessee. It's made with a gourd. Okay, this one's actually looks like an old coconut shell maybe, but the other ones I have are gourds like squashes, and it's been designed, carved into it. I carved Rainbow 2012 and Wolf, says Wolf right there. And and it's just filled with pebbles and stones like that. And so it's a simple tool, but the idea is by going to the shamanic state of consciousness, whether through repetitive breathing or constant rattling, and your mind slowly going to that state of mind, or drums, which I'm going to do for you guys in a few minutes, or eating ayahuasca, drinking ayahuasca, you can go to this other place that is often described in similar ways by many people. People describe going down a tunnel to the underworld, to another place, and often you'll meet power animals. And your power animal, your spirit animal, if you know me, pay attention to my work, you can guess what type of animal I've felt aligned with for the past few years. That would be a wolf. And I can talk all day about wolves and how I got into that experience, but we'll save that for another show. But basically the idea is, again, that the shaman connects with all elements of life. The idea of Manankari, this comes from the Ashaninka people of the Amazon, those who are hidden, the spirits that dwell in all life. Manankari being present in the stone and plants and people and the two-leg and the four-leg and animals and all these things. And essentially what it comes down to is a respect for all life and understanding that reality is multi-leveled. And this is where the shamanic state of consciousness and the ordinary state of consciousness comes into play. And this is also why I don't waste my time debating too many people about what their perceptions are with reality and what solution they think is right or wrong, because as far as I'm concerned, we're all right to some different degree. I have a great essay by a shaman, a Polynesian Hawaiian shaman, from a book that I got from a friend, where he discusses looking at this field, and it's just like, say, a 5x5 little prairie that you can see, right? And when you look at it from one level of consciousness, he breaks down in his view 5 different states of understanding reality at any point. And he's saying if you look at it from one standpoint, you see the trees, you see how much grass there is, how wide it is, how tall, how many animals, all these physical characteristics. And then he just goes through it. Okay, look at it again from this set of eyes, and by the end of it, you're looking at it and you just see this, like, I see the bird, drinking the hummingbird drinking the nectar from the flower, and the way that feeds the bee, and you really see this interconnected world. And that's what I understand is basically all those things are existing at one time, and that's what shamanism has shown me and given me peace in many ways, to understand that I don't have to be right. I can let go of the idea that I'm going to somehow get everyone to accept the version of reality that I want, because I don't necessarily believe that that's how it works, And I think that, yes, we can find some common ground. I know some people are saying, well, you're going off the deep end. There's no consensus on reality. Well, I don't think so. I think that there is general principles that we operate under and that we all share the same space, but your perception and the things you manifest based on your perceptions and that become your reality are all your own and dependent on you. And through shamanism, we can learn how to go into these deeper spaces to conquer our own demons, our fears, or to heal people physically. Also, there's talk of shape-shifting, things like that. Things that, again, like, will challenge your perceptions of reality. But while a person is under the influence of ayahuasca, or a drum has been beating for 10 to 15 minutes, and they're sucked in and they can feel, and they go to some other place, they go down a tunnel, they open that door, when they come back, the feelings and the things they've experienced are just as real as this everyday waking reality. If the lessons are learned, then who are you to say, and I'm not sure that you could convince them that the things they experienced weren't real. And I've had some of those types of meditations, shamanic journeys with friends, where I was given a raccoon skin to meditate on, to focus on that animal, and ideas and lessons were communicated to me because I chose to be open to them. And especially in those moments where you're like, God, I feel silly. I'm just sitting here. I'm holding this animal skin. I've got this feather or whatever. Well, then that's all it's going to be to you. But you can also choose to understand the power behind intention, the power of manifestation, and the power of a line of thinking that has been around for, ever, basically. This is how we first started to understand and figure out reality. And some would say, okay, well, we figured it out. We got it better, right? There's no reason to go back to these barbaric, nature-based ways. But what I really think is that after a period of time, shamans started to spread the idea of shaman as a leader, and individuals started to pursue their own knowledge of the world and to base their reality and their decisions on their own conclusions, looking around and invoking their nature, going deep into meditation, going to drums and drawing from the earth and learning to work with the earth. And then you had this whole idea of state and religion, this one organization, this one institution that comes against and is smashing down on individuality. It's smashing down on the idea of a direct connection with God. And this is from another essay that I often quote, that it doesn't serve the state to have thousands of self-made prophets running around speaking their own truth who are not bound to state books or religious books. This freed the people, and this is why I say that statism is to anarchy as religion is to spirituality and shamanism under that spirituality, because it's a direct connection that nobody else can take away. And that's a short summary of some of the stuff here, but there's another part that I do want to touch on, and I think that's what's important to remember, though, is that shamans, this idea has been around forever, and it's only now, in the past, 1,000 years or so, where we've had Inquisition and people burning at the stake for pursuing their own knowledge, And the thing about this is that even if you consider yourself to be a Christian, you can still have a practice of shamanism, because shamanism doesn't ask you to bow to any one God or anything like that at all. In fact, it asks you to recognize the God that is within all life, and whatever God that may be from your particular belief or lack of God, or just understanding nature as this unified whole of energy. So you can be a Christian and you can go out there and you can still invoke the power of spirit. And I know to some people these different tools, they seem scary, and new things can be scary, but if you're open-minded and you want to pursue a deeper knowledge of self, and I imagine if you're here and you're communicating with me right now and you're chatting and we're talking to each other in this moment, this now, yeah, this one too, wait, this one too, this now too, then you're here for a reason and we're talking for a reason. So I appreciate you being here. One thing I do want to note about the book, The Way of the Shaman, for those who want to go deeper with this, is that this is not the only book that Michael Harner wrote, and he specifically makes it noted here that he considers himself to be a shaman, and so he's trying to explain the methods how you can obtain this. This book is not a book that's going to go deep into looking at it from a Western viewpoint. So I'm just going to briefly read this to you guys, if you don't mind, real quick. This is essentially a phenomenological presentation. I will be not trying to explain away shamanic concepts and practices in the terms of psychoanalysis or any other contemporary Western system of causal theory. The causality involved in shamanism and shamanic healing is indeed a very interesting question, and a question worthy of intensive research. But causality-oriented scientific research is not essential to teaching shamanic practice, which is the main objective here. In other words, Western questions as to why shamanism works are not necessary in order to experience and employ the methods. Try to suspend any critical prejudgments as you first practice shamanic methods. Simply enjoy the adventure of the shamanic approach, absorb and practice what you read, and then see where your explorations take you. For days, weeks, and perhaps years after you use these methods, you will have ample time for reflecting on their meaning from a Western point of view. The effective way to learn the shaman system is to use the basic concepts they do. For example, when I speak of spirits, it is because that is the way the shamans talk within the system. To practice shamanism, it is unnecessary and even distracting to be preoccupied with achieving a scientific understanding of what spirits may really represent and why shamanism works. So he says the main focus here is to provide an introductory handbook of shamanic methodology for health and healing. There's much more that I could write, but the basic essentials are here for anyone who has the capacity and inclination to start becoming a shaman. A knowledge of shamanism, like any knowledge, can be used for different ends, depending on the way it is employed. The way I offer you is that of healer, not the sorcerer, and the methods given are for those achieving well-being and health and for helping others. Finally, I should state, if it is not already obvious, that he practices shamanism, as do I, not because he understands shamanism in the ordinary state of consciousness terms, why it works, but simply because it does work. But don't take my word for it. Truly significant shamanic knowledge is experienced and cannot be obtained from any other shaman. Shamanism is basically, after all, a strategy for personal learning and acting on that learning. I offer you a portion of the strategy and welcome you to the ancient shamanic adventure. Fuck yeah, doesn't that sound awesome? So other elements that I'm going to touch on briefly are, and this is explored more heavily in a book called The Cosmic Serpent that I've talked about quite often. Please read that book. Anthropologist Jeremy Narby is working on a follow-up now called Plants and Intelligence. But basically in that book he outlined some of the steps that Harner had pointed it to in the 50s, going and studying different tribes in North and South America and learning about their cultures and trying to understand them from their point of view, not to judge them from a Western point of view. And there are common things that happen, including tunnels, ladders, ropes, vines. People see these things. Now, when I do my facilitation of this session that I call Manifestation Through Shamanic Drumming, which is about a 45-minute to an hour session, where we'll say I have a group of you sit down and I'll explain some of these concepts of what shamanism is, the power of drums and the power of the rattle, and then we'll go into a meditation and we'll just relax for 10 minutes or so. And then I'll tell you, okay, you're going to be in your power spot, whatever that means. Mine is this infinite green field where I'm just sitting down and all I see is green every direction and then blue skies all over me. And I'm there, and that's where I go to when I need to be safe. And so you go to your spot, right? And there's going to appear somewhere near you a door. Now, there's going to appear stairs. Stairs first. The stairs can go up or down. That's up to you and your mind to decide. And you're going to walk up to the edge of the stairs, right? And then I'll go, now start walking down the stairs. And then you get to the door, right? And then this is where we'll set the intention, right? For each different session, I would say, okay, hey, today we're going to focus on self-forgiveness, or we're going to focus on this or that. But generally, I like to leave it open. So I'd say, today, when we open this door, you're going to think of a situation that you would like to see fixed in different ways, right? And when the door opens, I'm going to begin playing drums, and you're going to allow the drums to take you on this journey. And you're going to see the situation in the ideal way that you wish it would be. That means you're going to smell it, you're going to taste it, you're going to see it, and you're going to feel it and truly experience it. And of course, this is only limited by your own imagination. So if you just half-ass this thing, you're not going to create the situation or see the things you want. You might sit there with that Western thinking again, that frontal lobe negative self-talk telling you, this is silly, I feel dumb, I should just get up and leave, why am I hanging out with all these hippies? But maybe you get into it and you let go of those fears and doubts and limitations, and you go deep in your mind. And so you explore this, and one thing that's powerful and important is to attach these things to nature. So if you're thinking of, if this is as deep as you get, you want the brand new red car, well, think about that red in terms of the blood of life, or like a red robin, or something natural and attached to nature. It gives it weight, it gives it grounding, because you can feel that, you see that, you know that it has life. It's more than just a piece of concrete or a red shirt. I mean, it's all living, it's all a piece of us, but give it that life. And then so I'll drum and we'll go for a good while, and you'll be in your head, and then after 20 minutes or so I'll kind of like slow it down and be like, okay, now this is the last part. Now you have to see it, smell it, whatever it is that you want, like feel those things, experience them completely in your mind. And then we go nuts and nuts and nuts, and then I drum out and then slowly kind of bring you back. And this is where in most shamanic journeys, sometimes people will tell you to remember your way back, that you'll have a guide. It might be an animal, it might be a person or something, but sometimes you might need to forget your way back, and they'll help you and things like that. So it's just interesting to see which way your mind takes you. And I try to leave out as much of my own experience in people's, I don't try not to influence their experience by telling them about what happens with me, but at the same time get them to embrace the fact that, hey, if you haven't opened up to your own mind, then you might want to take some time to do that, because sometimes these places and these things we need to explore the most are things that we have put off and fought for so long. So be prepared for what your mind has in store for you and what's waiting for you in that shamanic state of mind. So yeah, that's a brief discussion, man. I think check the chat real quick to see if we got any questions. I haven't been checking the chat, or if Neil, if you see any chat, send us a message. on those topics. But again, this is a way of the shaman. And has anybody out there had any of their own shamanic journeys, had any ayahuasca experiences? I've had a couple of experiences with ayahuasca and with its cousin, the direct chemical DMT itself. But again, I would point to another essay that I've read recently that showed physically in our bodies and in our minds, there's no difference between the state of mind that you achieve from sitting down and counting your breath and just doing that, or the rattle repeating, or the drum, all these different things. They create the same state of mind. Like, it's just the repetition, it seems like, is whether you're coming back, you're centering yourself, breathing, or yoga stretching, or just the drum repeating. It's something about that repetition that puts our brain into these states of mind and creates a similar experience. So you don't need drugs to do it, kids, but you can. It's your choice. Any comments on the chat? If not, I want to do something. Alright, Neil, let's go ahead. I think what we'll do, because I want to play you guys. Welcome back to the Conscious Resistance Live. I want to answer a question and close out before I play you guys my drum. First of all, yeah, there was a question in the chat. Sorry I didn't see that. Somebody asked, how do I get motivation through shamanism when things are difficult? How does that help me? How is that a tool for that? I would definitely say that shamanism can be a tool for all types of healing and for motivation. For me, my motivation comes through this drum. I often forget, and I'm working on remembering how great healing drums can be. And what's interesting to me, briefly here, about the differences between my interest in Zen Buddhism and shamanism is that Zen was a complete rejection of the rituals and all that stuff from Tibetan Buddhism. Make sure Neil's not saying that. And shamanism is pretty much real. It's built around rituals, but I don't see it as being contradictory or anything like that. I think basically you can understand the power of the mind and that all is all there is, and the nothingness, the void, etc., etc., but still take power in rituals and understanding that you're basically, as someone put it, playing a game, that as much weight as you choose to give this reality is as much weight it'll hold over you. And in the reality that I choose to operate most of the time, I understand that I can create things and I can make things happen with my mind. Yeah. But another trait of what makes a shaman is the ability to move between these worlds. And I see that with activism. I can go hang out with like an Occupy crowd, or get dressed up and go downtown in the city council and do that stuff, or be dirty in the ground doing gardens, or just spit anarchist politics, from the grassroots level, etc. But I think that all these things are important. They all help and they all play a role. And in general, I think shamanism, meditation, self-reflection are healing.